embodiment of that pioneer spirit. Little businesses that have grown into big ones because it's a place where one man, any man, can do things on his own.
Indiana.
First decided to kind of do this paper to pavement thing. I had to go in the think tank on the name for the channel too, and it all boiled down to everything I do, whether it be build a car or interior, doesn't matter. Everything starts from a drawing, a pencil drawing on paper, and then the goal is to be on the road or the track or wherever with it. Paper to pavement was so obvious that it almost seemed too easy to do, but it just sums up everything that I'm trying to get through here just perfect.
Introduce to us why a Nash dragster.
This is the third or fourth Nash Metropolitan I've owned, and I always dreamed of building a Nash hot rod, never really a dragster. And then with the altered, it was kind of like my bug is an altered. I knew the recipe to make that work, so I thought the Nash Metropolitan just always stuck because I've wanted one since I was in high school.
How did you find the Nash?
So I was at Rockin' Race and racing the bug for the first time at Rockin' Race. Everyone's question every time I get a car done is, what's next? You know, what car's next? My friend Kara was actually talking to me at US 42, and she's going to be on the cover of the issue the Nash is in. We were talking, she wanted to know what my next car was, and I told her I was real specific on a Nash Metropolitan. I wanted an older car, so the Nash fit into it perfect, but I wanted the newer body style of Nash Metropolitan. So the body style is the same, but one has a trunk lid. I wanted the trunk lid. And I wanted a yellow and white car. I was real specific. And then Monday morning, someone calls me and they have one and tells us to come check it out. And me and Walter jumped right in the truck and went and checked it out.
I'm Walter Gurr, one of Mikey's older buddies. A lot of times Mikey will just call me out of the blue and say, let's go do this, let's go do that. So it did surprise me. He said, let's go to Lafayette to go look at a car. And of course we talked about what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it. All the way up there, of course, when we got up there to see it, we wasn't surprised what we found. It was a very nice car. Been a good one to restore, but you know, better as it is now.
But the guy was super cool. We got there, he showed us around, showed us all of the stuff, and then this car was just kind of the bastard child sitting around, the only car he had that he just didn't see any value in. And he really made that evident when he priced it to me. I mean, it was the money in my pocket took the car home. It wasn't much. Like, he damn near gave it to us. Yeah, I drew the car months before I ever found the car. I like to do that. In a perfect world, that's what I would do every time, is draw the car, come up with the idea. Then you start looking for things that are priced right, are closer to your home, so you don't have to get stuff shipped in from Italy or wherever. But with the name of the car, it came before the car too. The car was already named, and it was because I knew I was doing a yellow and white car. And I just kind of go into a think tank of all the names, and I base names off of the word Nash, the word Metropolitan, or just the color. And this so happened to be the color, and when I thought banana hammock, it just made me laugh, which is usually the perfect way to pick a name. So now the easy part's done, which is the drawing, the idea. And in finding a car comes a laundry list of problems. Biggest problem is money. I build these cars with close to no budget, and I'm not saying no budget as in, oh, sky's the limit, I don't care how much it costs. No, it's got to be as close to the number 0 as possible. So when digging, when finding cars, I look for rough ones. I don't want to take a car that's could easily be put back on the road, and a lot of times it's titles. You know, it's with a race car, I don't need a title. I want a VIN number on it so I can make sure it is not stolen. But other than that, I don't need paperwork to drive it on the street. I know I'm not going to drive it on the street, and that makes the car cheaper. So get the car cheaper with no title. Then comes condition. Is the car rusty? Is it dented? Which do you prefer? You know, and with me, my skill set, I would rather there be rust because I'm cutting it all out anyway. I just don't want it crash. I don't want it beat from one end to the other. Looking at cars, you get on Marketplace, you get on all the social media sites and the internet just digging up trying to find cars. I want to buy one car and that be it. It have everything that I need. Sometimes that can take months. This just so happened, the universe wanted me to build this car. I drew it, I talked about it to someone, and then immediately someone called me and had the exact car and wanted it gone. He didn't care about the money, didn't care. He wanted to see the car get back on the track and have fun with it. What happened with this whole filming the process of the banana hammock? What led to all of this was everyone loved my bug so much, and everyone wanted to see the build, wanted to see more videos, more pictures, and I didn't do it. I just locked myself in and just grinded it out to get it done as fast as possible. And I talked to my brother, because he's a very artsy guy, and I told him, I said, would you be interested in filming this with me, for me, doing the editing and everything? And we were just going to make like real simple videos. We weren't planning on getting this in depth with it. The main reason is my brother won't probably say this, but I will. He's not a car guy at all. He could care less about what's going on with these cars. So it was cool that he was willing to come up and help me like he was and help me set the equipment up because I knew nothing about it. We finally got to where we're walking around and rolling. I mean, there's videos that me and him took where we didn't even have pieces of equipment on, you know, and we didn't even know how any of it worked. So it was a learning curve from day one, whether it be the camera equipment or how to talk on camera, which is nonsense. You should just talk. Actually getting into the car, what do we need to shoot on the car? What do people want to see? What do they not want to see? And it was like going to school for it. School of hard knocks for it too. We were definitely not professionals in any stretch of the imagination. I built a car in 1 year, and I remember calling you the day before we started filming. We'd actually just bought our camera and everything. So I thought, if I can get Trent to where when he goes on his tours to take pictures for the magazine, if he could stop in here and kind of coach us along the way, it would be awesome. And then you ended up moving into the area, and it just worked out awesome that you took over, and everything started turning out a lot nicer. You knew what you were doing more than we know what we're doing. I bring the car inside, and the very first thing I did was cut the wheel wells into the car. I did that the day before I got the steel for all the chassis. Oh, I put the word out that I was looking for 55 Chevy fenders that weren't too nice to cut up, which is the key here. I didn't want to spend $1,500 on fenders, first off, but also I didn't want something that could be used on a car. So I put the word out, and my buddy Ryan Pope got a hold of me and said, hey, I've got 55 Chevy fenders off a dirt car that the tops are just roached. The only thing good is the wheel opening. Perfect for me, absolutely perfect. So I decide I'm going to cut those up and put them on first. So not only do I have this little cream puff of a Metropolitan, it is too nice of a car to do what we ended up doing to it, but I take this cream puff of a little car, and I've got these 55 Chevy fenders. I haven't cut anything yet, and I'm just kind of staring. I get butterflies in my stomach like I'm about to make the first pass in this car. And what's cool about it is I still have time to turn around and go, this car, I can find another car, I could sell this car, you know, these fenders, I could completely change my game plan. But I didn't. I fired up the saws and the grinder, and I just cut them all up. And then once the first cut was made, it just felt like the car fast forwarded, you know, like it's game time. It's off to the races, you know. What felt like such a slow start of it sitting in my side yard was no longer a slow start. We're going, you know.
That's when it's just like you're in it to win it.
I'm in it. I'm fully committed at this point. I'm fully committed. I'm usually pretty comfortable when I cut a car up for some reason. Is one of the things I was put on earth to do is destroy things. And with that, I just look at it as simple as it's not a Nash Metropolitan anymore. It's not a 55 Chevy fender anymore. These are pieces to make the banana hammock. That's what these are. So I've opened this model kit. You see the model kits where you got 3 choices. You can have a hot rod, a 4-wheel drive, or a custom, and you pick one, and those are the only parts you need. So for me, it was pretty evident once I cut it that there is no turning back. It's, let's start welding this stuff up, let's start cutting it where it needs cut. And the more time you spend making patterns on things, the easier it goes and the less cuts you have to make. So when I got started planning the chassis out just for a timeline for everybody, coronavirus hit. What that did was take this budget that I'd put together and really turned it upside down. I thought I was going to be able to get the steel to build a big frame table. You know, I wanted to build a big, nice iron one that I could weld off of and everything. And steel prices went so high so fast that I barely had enough money to get the steel for the chassis, let alone the chassis and the table. The prices went up so much, that price became just the chassis. So I ended up building a table out of wood. It had went up a little bit, but not near as much as steel had at the time. So I built a wooden frame table, which, you know, probably not the best thing to weld on, but kept the fire extinguisher close. And then once the table was all locked up and done, it actually was a great accident that it worked out the way it did, because with a wood table, I could make stops and didn't have to weld anything. It was just screw it into the top of the table, make all my jig out of wood, and it worked out to be something I'm going to keep. I'm going to use it from now on as a wood table. The steel finally came in for the chassis. I'm not a zigzag race guy. I am a to B, straight line, easiest way, and the easiest way to build this chassis was no kick-ups, no anything, solid mounted rear end, like a T-bucket style front end, and then 2 straight rails. And I mean, they are, when I say straight rails, I don't mean we have 2, you know, slightly bent rails. We have 2 dead straight rails that this is all built off of, which makes the math so much easier when you're putting everything else together, because the degree is set at 0 if it's flat. The chassis I built for it is really based off of, and I'm not going to say it is a certain kind of chassis because I didn't use any plans or anything, but it's as close to like a Topolino or just an early altered, you know, a late 50s to early to mid 60s altered. The only reason that I don't do suspension on the back is so I can get the ride height crazy low and not have to worry about the tire hitting the car. I had the rolling base done, so now it's time to set the body on, and I have to cut it off of the old chassis. I want to save as much as this chassis as possible, because I know a guy that had one with a terrible floor pan and chassis, so he was actually using everything I cut out of it to restore his car, which made me feel a lot better about cutting it up at this point too. So I called my dad, had him come up and actually help me.
You know, Michael always tries to do stuff to keep me involved. He's quick. He knows, you know, it's hard for me and him because he knows exactly what he's going to do. He's built it through his mind several times.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. I when I touch something, that's when I kind of start on it.
Yeah.
And it's probably the reason why I don't get them done as quick as him, but we're different.
So we've been cutting for probably, I don't know, what would you say, 4 or 5 hours? Probably 4 or 5 hours. We think we've got everything done. We made some reinforcements in our rafters. Went and got the winch and kind of made a thong around the car. And hopefully we can lift this thing up and just slide this chassis out from under. It's what we're going for here. So we will see.
Now, I got some awesome footage of you guys getting this body off. And do you remember anything about that day, taking that body off?
Yeah, he was super excited. I mean, it's like opening up a present, you know.
I originally thought that a Nash Metropolitan had a chassis. Like, I thought I was going to be able to lift this body up and then cut the floor out. I learned really fast that I was wrong. Not only is it a unibody car, it's a unibody car clamshelled in between 2 pieces of sheet metal. So everything I cut was anywhere from 3 to 4, 6 layers thick. So all my saw blades were just going, they were going out fast, really fast. Then once I started cutting it, the car started sagging, and I thought, well, this is the worst case scenario. So I had to reinforce my building to put the winch in the roof to lift the car up while I was cutting it out, so the weight of that chassis wasn't going to fold it in two once it started going limp. Everything I cut off of this car, or unbolt, or anything, I don't just rip off with ill intention. I take it off so it can be preserved, reused, even if it's just to hang it up on the wall. That's better than throwing it away. So I'm trying to do all of this car with no waste in mind. Even pieces of sheet metal that I cut off of certain sections, I set aside and saved later to make patch panels out of. I mean, that's how much money I tried to save on the car and put back into the car what came out of it. It just, you know, the thickness of steel is the same on the inner wheel well that it is in the door. So it welds to itself better than a new piece of steel does. That is what we ended up cutting out today. So it's a full chassis. It looks so tiny. But made it happen. Nope, didn't break a single saw blade, did we? There's a lot of layers to this thing, more than I thought. But that's all we need. This is where you start mocking everything up. The body is ready to kind of set on the frame the way it goes. There's a lot of 4x4 blocks holding stuff, and like the wheels and tires are just floating there on their own. But it's what you post on Instagram and start getting people involved. When I got the body sit down on the chassis, I really started realizing that the car was possible. You know, it was actually going to look like my drawing. Because until you get to that point, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to have to compromise on something that in my head's cool, but maybe it just doesn't go to reality. And with this car, it just so happened everything I thought would work did work. It was cool. The wheel wells landed perfect with my wheelbase, and then I had to cut the rear quarters at that point for my rear wheels. When I'm planning out everything for this chassis, of course I have the attachments for the front perch and the attachments that actually connect my rear end to the car. But all that kind of stuff, I don't sit and cut that out. I make patterns. Imagine if you cut every one of these pieces out of steel. I mean, you're wasting so much stuff. Grinding, drilling, time, and money, you know. So, made out of cardboard 3 or 4 times, but now when we take this to Jeremy, we get our pieces back exactly how we need them.
That's the real crossroads right here.
Yeah, no joke. There's been more photo shoots of cars, that junction right there, than anywhere in Indiana, probably.
Maybe in the world.
Yeah, maybe even the world. How many cars do you shoot there? 4?
At least.
Yeah, at least 4, right? And what's so awesome about Jeremy's place is he's just right across the highway. He's super local to me. His house is actually just right across the field. Every time I start one of the race cars, they call me and say it sounds good. Yeah, that's his place, just right up there on the hill. He saves me so much money in drill bits, grinding discs, all this stuff that you don't need. I literally get a part that's ready to go on the chassis once I get it back. Getting Jeremy involved in these projects make them so much nicer than I could do actually setting and cutting them out and trying to grind these pieces that are really elaborate. So I get all the pieces back from Jeremy, and then once we get them home, I don't even need to do a test fit. I've already done my mock-up with wood blocks and everything, and the actual mock-up was me making cardboard templates, so by the time I get them back, I'm ready to just weld them on. The last thing I had to do before the body could come off was I had to establish where the steering box was going to set and if it was going to clear the body. That's the last kind of tight fit thing I had to make. And once that was tacked in place and done, I was ready to pull the body off. With the body to come off, I needed a plan. The first time I wrapped straps around the roof and through it, kind of like a thong to pull it off. See, I ran this 4x4 from rafter to rafter, so we're pulling on more than just one central point on the building. Hopefully it won't pull it down. The issue with that is now I'm messing with a car that is lighter because it doesn't have the chassis in it. To pick the body up, I actually dreamed up this kind of lift bracket and made it out of a bunch of scrap steel. It was to actually distribute the weight, you know, like the lifting of the weight over the entire roof instead of just 2 points, because the only other way I had to do it was wrap a ratchet strap around it, and then it's going to dent it. So I needed to plan out a way to put it back on, which wouldn't have been a problem then. I could have lifted the body off with a ratchet strap, fixed the dents, no big deal. But you got to think, the next time it's going to see that chassis, it's going to be painted, it's going to be done. So I needed to make it to where it could safely, softly lift up the car and it be able to be controlled, because I thought it was just going to be 2 people putting the body on and off. So, and it so happened that it went on by itself. I mean, that I need to patent those damn things.
They go smooth as possible.
Oh, couldn't went any better than that. This rack is the way to go. It's even centered it perfect. Look at this.
Good
I mean,
job,
it's
didn't it?
not screwed to that rack at all. It's perfect. Now, we'll take this off and see if we've messed up our roof. Should be okay, but could have destroyed it too. Your way. Got it? Yep. My side looks good. We've done that before. See, look, this is what happened before. See how this drip rail, how that's brought up a little bit? It's because before we had one strap going right there. Now you can look, we had it from there to there. It's not bent at all. Perfect. So this is the point. This is the point where I start to feel like I've actually accomplished something. The majority that you see in the car is a plastic motor. It's a mock-up engine. So the actual engine that I was going to be using is one that we had setting aside. I didn't know if it was good or bad. I wasn't really sure, but I knew Mike and Adam Lowhorn offered to rebuild an engine for me. I dug through my stash and found one that Dad had set aside. And when I took it over to Mike, he broke it down, and it was a virgin bore 350. He ran the codes, and it was a 71 or 2 block, I think. It literally broke down into being a stock rebuild, pretty much. I mean, it's got a camshaft, and then Walter found a set of heads at a swap meet that he bought for me. That engine is all brand spanking new, and Mike and Adam put that thing together for nothing. I mean, they hooked me up on that thing, something I would never be able to afford. I think they knew that my budget was about to implode on itself. They really did me a solid on that, and it not only looked cool once they got it together. I mean, they even painted the block and did things I didn't expect them to, and but they had it fired up and broke in when I went to pick it up.
Make this engine stand just for you, man. I always wanted one too. So. Yeah, you use it. Cool. I mean, like I say, for a hydraulic cam, mild, stock bore, 350, I think she's going to be just fine.
Another big part of recording all this and kind of showing the journey is not just the car and the parts. I really wanted to show the people that helped me out on these, and without these people, the car would never get done.
So what's nice about this is almost as if I just called you and we're doing a story on the Hammock. If we're writing the story, if I go, hey, Mikey told me that you guys did the motor, how did that come to fruition? How did it start? And tell us that story.
Oh, about the engine?
Yeah.
Well, we were on Facebook one day, and Mikey Brown, of course, he's always got these wild projects going on, and knew him from the Six Offender, the Bug, and he contacted me and said, hey, I want you guys to build me a motor. And I'm like, well, what are you looking for? You know, and he says, nothing special, just, you know, I want to, you know, I'm building a new car. It's going to be called the Banana Hammock, and he showed me pictures of this Nash. And I was like, man, that's cool. You know, I definitely want to be a part of that, you know. So he, you know, he brought me an engine. We kind of just tore into it, and of course he's, you know, he's like me. He wants stuff done right, but he don't want to spend an arm and a leg. I do all my stuff that way, you know. So that's what we did. We put it together. We did it as cheaply as possible, and I think the thing runs pretty daggone good.
Surprised he called us, since our name's Rod Slinger. We blow up some motors, but
yeah, that is kind of strange. You contact somebody with Rod Slinger on the side of their door, but actually that would be the best person to contact, because sooner or later they're going to figure out what causes that, and they're going to fix it.
we're gonna make a good one.
How did you guys meet Mikey the first time? Where did this relationship start?
Probably just, well, actually, I think I met Mikey through Patrick Hampton, honestly, through Beatersville, car shows and stuff like that. And because them two always come over and pick on me and stuff, you know, picking on a little kid. And just formed a friendship through them two and car shows and seeing them at the drag races and stuff like that. But Mikey.
Yeah, I met him, I think, for the first time, US 60, our nostalgia drags. I think he showed up in a little front engine dragster, which was I believe it was a 6-cylinder, inline 6. And a really cool little car, and got to know him there and realized that, you know, he's the guy that people were talking about that did the interior work, and kind of put 2 and 2 together. And yeah, just, you know, car guys, we eventually will meet each other, you know.
But does it kind of make it special when you know it's going to be in something that Mikey's doing, because it's going to be maybe a little more entertainment, some humor involved into it?
Yes, the cookie cutter stuff, you know, the LS swapping, air ride, you know, all that stuff's cool. But when Mikey brings in these little weird projects, and, you know, he's like, man, we got to be a part of that. That's just neat, you know. Just so cool when you see something that different, you know.
Got to be different, that's for sure.
You remember about the build yourself?
Well, really, just gathering up the parts and helping Dad tear everything down, and keep telling Mikey, you know, what kind of, let's get this big cam. What about this big cam? He's like, I just want a cam. I don't really care what kind of cam it is. I just want a cam. But just helping Dad get everything tore apart and help him get the parts to fix it, and being here to help him put it all together. And it's pretty simple. I mean, we make small block Chevy run pretty good, so he come to the right place. It's definitely a special feeling for sure. I know a lot of people, they ain't as lucky as me. There's a lot of father and son teams out there, but there ain't nothing like ours, that's for sure.
A father-son duo, but seeing one that, you know, supports each other so well is it's a very rare thing. You know, I mean, I've been at the track and see father and sons, and they're at each other's throats more than two people at war, and you guys have a really good team going, other than, you know, family. I mean, you guys are friends too, and that's a really special thing. And they've got cars in there that are, I mean, legit, not just legit race cars, but they got cars in there that are wheelie machines, you know, that are, he's got a Camaro that's an awesome hot rod that's, you know, a street car, and I guess it's a race car too, but everything they have is just like super, super nice. They do it all themselves. It's awesome. And his dad is also known this. His dad's probably more famous than him, because he's the one standing outside the car shifting the gears, and everyone thinks that he drives the thing. But they're just awesome people, man. You're really not going to meet anybody as nice as them. And that guys like that's what inspired me to film not just the car and everything built in the car, but I've got to bring in the people that no one get to know. You know, you watch TV and you see famous people, but you don't see people that you actually want to be around and be with. Not only did he give me an engine for the Nash, but we go over to the Christmas tree that he leaves up year round, and he pulled the Nash Metropolitan ornament off and had to give that to me too. It was just, it was really just meant to be.
What you feeling now?
Oh, feels like we got a lot of work to do.
How you feeling about all that?
Oh man, so good. Mike does solid on that guy. 300 horsepower, 350, something like that. It'll be a rocket ship in this little car. So, I've heard this engine run, and I'm like a top fuel car running down the track with no brakes. I'm wide open, but I'm about to hit the sand pit at the end of the track. And the reason I say that is because I know I'm coming home to have to finish all that body work and do all that nasty, dirty job. It's not fun. Anyone that says body work's fun is lying. What I'm doing here, I'm actually putting pressure here. So that pushes that up as I hit my high down, because there's a low here, there's a high here. So I'm hitting the high down while I'm pushing the low up. That's why you can hear when it's hitting, you know, like you can hear impact, or when I'm not, it's making a kind of an echo. So once I actually got home and got cracking on it, I spent, I think, 3 days before primer, just hammering out the little bit of body work. I had started roughing in the wheel wells, just in between jobs. I'd have a day or two, so I'd put a layer of fiberglass or some putty or something. But once we left Lowhorns, the body needed done. I mean, we had an engine, it was ready to go in a chassis that wasn't done yet either. So no fun parts came after we left for that engine. So it's cold outside. We haven't had a really good snow here for years. And just so happened when I need to paint my car in my upholstery shop, I might add, we have a blizzard. I mean, it's insane. I mean, we have 3 or 4 inches, which I know to some of you guys up in Michigan and stuff are nothing, but for here, I'm on a back gravel road that you can't get to when it rains, let alone when there's a blizzard. So we're stuck. We're trapped there. My shop has a old electric furnace in it that doesn't work well. You know, I mean, it's warm in there, but it's not like painting ready to be warm. And man, I get this thing through the nasty week of body work and get it all taped up, ready to prime, and the electric shuts off.
So where are you at? See if I can see you.
Yeah, I just got it all clean. It's all wiped down. I have the gun ready. The primer is sitting there ready to mix. And as soon as I hooked my gun up, the electric went off. So someone's already screwing with me.
Well, I remember that day too, because I remember
you were on your way.
I got rid of my truck.
Yes.
And now I have a Chrysler 300. And so I'm in this 300 that looks like I'm bringing drugs on this back road through the snow. It looks like I got a deal I need to get done. So I'm already sketched up. I'm already thinking, I wonder if I can make it close enough. I'm going to walk with my gear to Mikey's shop so I can film this. And I walk in, and it's just
pitch black.
It's pitch black.
And not just is it pitch black. I hear your car pull in with the lights on. Okay? So from the time you pull in to get in my shop, the lights shut off. Which, it was like someone was messing with me. I mean, it really was. It was like, oh, you're doing all this work, you've got your shop to 60 degrees. It took me a week to get the shop to 60 degrees. And then, now let's shut all the electric off and let it get back to 8 degrees again. I don't know how it got done. Getting a project to here is the hard part. You know, from here on, it's all pretty and it's easy to want to come out here and work all the time. What's hard is staying motivated when, you know, you're looking at the same Bondo spot and, you know, the same grinder mark. And this, up to this point, it takes a real commitment. So many project cars get given up on up until this point. And then you'll see some that'll get to this point and then give up on them. I don't know what they're doing. It's just getting fun. But this part right now, from when it gets painted to assembled, is my favorite. I just love this part. I get all excited. Every day I want to work on it. And just so happened that day, which was another cool little side note, my buddy Ryan was coming to Scottsburg, and if the electric wouldn't have went off, I wouldn't have been able to see him, and I hadn't seen him in 6 months or something. So everything happens the way it's supposed to, man. I probably wasn't in the mindset to really sit down and prime that right then anyway, off of doing all that body work. And I went back and cleaned it again after that before I primed it. And who knows, man, maybe that the electric shut off because I needed to take a breather for a minute. One of the last things I was kind of, not really stressing about, but I just didn't know the process of how to do it. And it was wild that it worked out as good as it did. So before I went to Mike's, I was wondering, how do I get my fiberglass hood scoop to attach to my steel hood scoop without showing fasteners? I wanted it to be molded to it, and I've seen a bunch that just crack immediately and look terrible. Mike, a little backstory about him is he's a paint and body guy for 20 plus years. I mean, just an awesome painter, body man, just anything Mike Lowhorn touches. He's like Midas, you know, it just turns to gold. So I go in there and I look at his Camaro. He's got a 69 Camaro, and he's got this fiberglass hood scoop on this steel hood. So I asked him, you know, how do you make this happen? And he gave me a game plan on how to cut my hood and mold mine to where I would have zero effect on, zero chance of it cracking. Once I did my hood, I got it done, and I thought I was going to start on it and then you were going to be there to record it. And the way Mike told me was so easy that I had it done in an hour. So I have my whole shop taped up and masked up like an episode of Dexter. And to prime this thing, well, I prime it and then I have to wet sand it, get all of the, you know, all the little imperfections out and sand it out and everything before we paint. I know that I want a Volkswagen white. If it gets a beard hair in it, it's like 10 extra horsepower. That's the color we went with for the white. It's a pearl white, it's like a 1965 Volkswagen color. Every car needs a little bit of Volkswagen in it. Helps it run better. I use single stage urethane on it. Well, I get it all ready. I spray it this white color, and then once I unmask it, it looks gray. And I'm talking like, I thought it was slate gray at that time. And I had seen 1,000 Volkswagens that were that white, and they weren't that, they were white. With my shop being all masked up on the sides, the only thing that was shining off that car was the gray concrete. So, I mean, that was crisis averted. When I go to tape it up, I unmask everything and retape it in between every process. That way I don't have to worry about paint bleeding through or anything weird. Dad and my sister came in and helped me tape up all of the little stuff. By this time, honestly, I was exhausted. I mean, I had went probably 2 weeks straight, hadn't stopped, just to get the thing in color. Because I had another upholstery job coming in, and I had to get it done. So thankfully, they were able to come in and help me tape it up at the end. My fingers were about shot, just from painting and sanding, and I did body work before that. So without them, I would have never got the yellow sprayed. I'd have had to hold off on it. The yellow that's going on is a 55 Thunderbird goldenrod yellow. So it's bright, but still soft, which is what I want. I didn't want like a school bus yellow. The yellow it was a hard color for me to pick because I actually don't like yellow on cars. It's one of the few colors that I always avoid when I do a car. So I kind of went into a think tank on what yellow cars do I like, you know? And of course everyone and their brothers like, well, just do it the American Graffiti coupe, you know? And it's not, I mean, when you really break it down, that's a pretty like iconic car, but it's a terrible color of yellow. I mean, it's awful. It's like implement yellow. It's not a good color. So I started going through and I just typed in yellow 50s cars, yellow 40s cars, yellow 60s, and I just literally went through pages and pages of searches. And then I found a 55 T-Bird, and it was goldenrod yellow, which already sounds cool. So I was like, you know, I'm gonna buy a little bit of it and do a little test to see if I like it. Well, they mixed me up a gallon on an accident, and when I went in there, as soon as they opened the lid, yeah, that's the yellow I'm looking for. It was just perfect to go with that white. Most people that know me, I don't even tell them that I am a painter. You know, I worked at an industrial company and all I did was paint equipment for 2 years. So that's always something I kind of keep in my back pocket. I don't like doing it, but if I've got to, and you'll notice on my drawings, the ones that I draw that aren't colored, I plan on someone else painting them. And then any that I have drawn that I color is because I plan on painting them. I have my idea done there. But I never want to stranglehold an artist, you know, if I'm going to have someone else paint it. The whole time I'm spraying this car, I don't really worry about much. I don't know why. I think it's just because I've painted quite a few cars. I just spray and just pay attention to my pattern and air pressure more than anything. But the actual spraying of it was effortless, man. I mean, it really laid down good.
Process now.
Well, I mean, as long as the tape doesn't mess up the paint when we pull it off, it's all downhill from here. Everything that goes on finishes it. Oh, I can't wait. Hopefully the snow will clear up pretty soon or we can do some burnouts in it. So. And I'm not saying like, oh, it was easy. It was just, I didn't really have any issues when it came to spraying the car. It was one of the rare occasions that I didn't have any runs, I didn't have any solvent pop, nothing weird. It all worked out really well. So yellow's sprayed, and then I am just chomping at the bit to unmask this thing and see it all in white and yellow. Once I pulled the tape off, my heart sunk. I thought that it was too gray. I hadn't seen it outside. There's snow outside. You know, I can't push it outside and look at it. See how I made that line actually hit this body line? Before, it went up here and went straight across. And there was like a gap here. But I thought this body line is the one to follow.
And it kind of gives back to the back end too, how you cut that off.
Yeah, I think so. That looks really, really good. Now, let's see if the trunk lid, the paint matches. It is no longer a wall hanger. It in place.
Oh no, it fits well, color-wise.
That's perfect. It's awesome. I just really like that, like all the lettering's back here at the back, loaded on the trailer, going down the road. Like when you glance at it, you're gonna go Nash Metropolitan because of the trim. You know what I mean? So I'm so happy with it. The whole idea was a Nash Metropolitan just kind of morphing into a race car. I still wanted that factory vibe to it, so I'm beyond happy with this. After it was all painted and it set for a while, we got it cleaned up pretty good. And then I had to figure out how to fasten this trim on. Not just that, I was out of money for the clips, I was going to use an old grill, and it looked awful. It was just terrible. I had a customer in at the time I was doing a Nova for, Dickie Copeland. He owns Dickie's Doghouse, a local shop here. And he came in, and I was showing him the car. I was really proud of it. And I was almost hiding the trim. I didn't really want him to see what I was getting ready to put on the car. And he walked over and said, you know, where's the grill? What is it going to look like when it's done? So I show him, what I've got, and he decides that Dickie's Doghouse is going to sponsor the trim for the car. So he bought the grill and the clips, everything to do this job right that I needed. Dickie saved the day on, which is another reason why I wanted to cover my people. You know, this is another guy, he's a customer of mine that not only feeds my family and keeps my lights on, now he's helping feed my hobbies too, which is unheard of. Once I got it all fastened, I put the front fenders and the doors on because I didn't do any modification to where those mount. But on the quarters, we have a big wheel opening now, you know, which wasn't there. And I have to not just, I didn't want to just cut the trim and screw through it. I had to cut pieces of the trim, finish off ends so they looked factory. I had to bend them and then fasten them to the car so it looks like it's supposed to be that way. But in doing that, there's gaps in between all this trim. To take care of those gaps, I called no other than Dave North from Dave North Signs, my go-to guy for any kind of lettering or pinstriping. So he came in and did all of the finish work in between all my pieces of trim on the nose, on the back. He used the signature color that we do for all my stuff. He's got like a Mikey lavender set aside that we use on just about everything, which kind of ended it with the yellow, white, and this lavender line. Kind of gives it this like you're in a hammock on the beach. How I tested the color of yellow to see if I really liked the color of yellow was I sprayed the deck lid. You know, the deck lid was an easy piece. The one I had for it was perfect. So I could literally just sand it down, prime it, wet sand it, and I painted it yellow. I planned on repainting it, but it sprayed so nice that I just left it alone. And when I did that, I got to the point where I was like, I gotta see it lettered now, you know? I was almost losing a little bit of fire inside of me to keep working on it. And taking the trunk lid over to Dave's and having him go ahead and letter it. So that's a piece that's done. It's lettered, it's painted. A piece of this car is completely done, and it just lit the fire right back up. I mean, it threw gas on it. I was really, really happy. Not just with the layout that he always, Dave, if you tell him to do anything, he's actually the one that came up with our paper to pavement logo too. You know, Dave did it as well. Just anything you need him to do, he nails it. When I dropped it off, I literally told him, Dave, do whatever you think looks cool on a nostalgic dragster, you know, that is called the banana hammock, whatever you want to do. And he, as always, just knocked it completely out of the park. At this point, we're ready for my favorite part of the entire project. My favorite part is laying out the blankets. Everything's painted. It looks good. It's ready to go together. It's a big model car kit now. The first thing that I need to do is get the axles under the chassis. I painted the chassis outside, and the reason I painted it instead of powder coat on this one is just in case down the road I wanted to put a fire suppression system in it, or a set of front brakes with a foot pedal, anything. I can grind it, weld, and then I can just touch it all up. I can touch the paint up way easier than I can powder coat. My rear end was all mocked up together, like when you see it rolling, you know, when it's not painted. The rear end didn't have the right gear in it. It was literally just cut down, axles cut down so I could mock up with it, which Ryan Walker did all of that. And then after it was all ready to blow apart, I think Ryan even came and got the rear end, and he went ahead and put the brakes on it, painted it, did the rear end gear, and just completely built the rear end. Like, got it ready for me. And I always lay blankets out, not just so things don't get scratched up, but anything that falls. If it falls on my concrete, it'll skip all the way across the floor. If I've got blankets there, it'll stop and land where it falls. And I'm clumsy. I drop plenty. But once the chassis started going together, it just kind of worked out perfect. Walter and my dad showed up to help me do all the fine-tuning little nuts and bolts before it went on. And my buddy Bill Brown, he's the guy with the Black Plague motorcycle. You know, some of you might have seen at Beatersville. But he came down, took vacation to come down, and the goal was to get the body put on. We worked for, I think, 2 days getting the chassis all assembled and the plans all figured out to drop the body on. And then at the perfect time, you and Chuck showed up. And that's the first time I'd met Chuck.
coming, I was like, dude, let's get this thing ready to lift so you can just go ahead and record this while you're here.
And replace the Whitney
like,
Houston?
Dude, yesterday I was like, I'm sitting right, we got to this point, and I'm like, damn it, why can't Trent just like live here right now so we can put this body on?
You're like, I got you a futon in the corner.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you can just sleep in here.
On this day, it could either be the best day or the worst. You're about to know if you're going to destroy what you're doing or if it worked out. And I got to test that lift, that rack I made. And this is, I mean, this one's for all the marbles. Is it going to buckle the roof? Is it going to shatter the glass? Who knows what it's going to do? And now everything's painted, so it's not just, scoot it around, do this. Everything is like, be very, very careful with it. So having as many hands on it as we did is what kept it from getting tore up. If everyone wouldn't have showed up when they did, I would have been trying to do that by myself. I would have tore it up. I would have. I know I would have. So another part of the whole origin of it is the fact that so many people showed up when it was time to put it back together. It just fell into place again. All of us are really excited because it looks awesome, and I am chomping at the bit to get the tires back on it so I can roll that sucker outside. I've never seen it outside, and it looks cool in my shop, but anything with wheels look good in a 30 by 40 shop. Does it look cool to the world? That's the question.
God, this thing is so cool. Yeah. Dude, it needs a pike rust on it.
No.
It looks cool.
It looks good, but I don't know I wanted it, you know, a little above level, so perfect. Does it look cool to the world? That's the question. And that's one that got answered pretty quick after it was pushed down the ramp. Everything I had dreamed of it being was there. It was there. It was exactly what I wanted. My wife, my kids came out and loved it. Everyone, the reaction I got from the people on the property was exactly what I was feeling.
Ooh, see that paint?
So I felt like it was, I did it. I felt, not that I crossed the finish line, but that I could see it. You know, I could finally see that checker flag I needed to run through. So there's a part of that day that stands out to me, and I wanted to walk off and see what it's going to look like from the stands, which is an odd way to think of it, but that's where people's going to be taking pictures of it, and that's where it's going to be perceived by the world. So I wanted to stand back and really get the look. And not only did I stand back and like it, I liked it more. Like, the farther I got back, the more dramatic I realized that this car is so tiny in this giant world. And I didn't have it parked next to a 55 Chevy to compare the two, but when I was there, you know, in the moment, I can see this little thing is as cool as it gets. You know, it's perfect. The car is just, for me, you know, the car is no 100-point show car. It's not. But what it is a perfect nostalgic car for me, you know, for a guy like me. This car was always built in the intentions of someone else owning it. I love the cars. I like enjoying them while I do, but I can't keep every car. I've got to build these cars reasonable enough so I don't even make profit on these cars. I sell them for what I put in them, and the reason I do that is so that the people that get them, well, are my level of life, and they can enjoy these cars, and they will take care of them. You know, I can kind of cherry pick who I want to own these cars because they're priced so reasonably. Now it's time to make the car ready to move under its own power, which meant plumbing, brakes, electrical, little odds and ends, monotonous stuff. I got all that done. My buddy Walter showed up. You're going to realize I talk about Walter a lot. Walter not only helped me get the car, he was there once or twice every week helping me along the way. He laughs and says gopher, but it was more than that. He was moral support, cheerleader. He helped me measure, cut, all kinds of stuff. He helped me the whole way. And then when it came to this day, he was holding the fire extinguisher for us, just in case this turned dirty. All of the stress that had been away since we put the body on was back in full effect. Trent was nervous. I was nervous. Walter was more nervous than all of us. Transmission, at this point, was the only thing that I was told was new by the guy I bought it from, but I didn't know this guy. I bought this on Craigslist. I don't know this guy at all. It looks new. I think he's telling the truth, but I don't know. Until this point, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna go out and test drive it, make sure it goes in gear. And if everything's good there, we'll bring it back in and interior, paint a couple little brackets that I put on, take them off and paint them, and it's done. We're really, really close, man. Hey, she works, bud. Oh, a little tweaking. Should be good to go. Man. How awesome is that, dude?
The brake feel good, everything?
Man, I tell you what, she's peppy. See that when I stomped it?
Yeah.
She took off right now. That'll be good, dude. It's gonna work. It's gonna work well. It's not as hard to get out of as I thought it'd be, to be honest with you. I don't know. Until this point, I'm not really sure. So when the transmission went into gear and actually moved forward, it was like an elephant was lifted off my shoulders. I pull outside and I do kind of a loop around to make sure. Grab the brake works. I put it in reverse don't work. And I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? What's going on? Is this transmission bad because it doesn't have reverse? What is the problem? It's a pro brake. It has a trans brake on it. I have to hold the trans brake button for the reverse to work. So I hit that button and then it's like, the car's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It works fine. And then once we pulled it back in the shop, it's just a woo of excitement. Everyone's excited, you know, and the day, week, month, year is all made at that point. The car's, it's at the finish line, so close. Went forward in both gears. It's good.
What would that felt like?
It feels good. I can tell it doesn't have as much oomph as my Bug does, but it's this thing, it's gonna move good. It really jerked me, so I'm pretty excited. So my wife and kids sacrifice a lot for me to build these cars. We don't go on vacations or nothing. We build cars. So when they all come outside and think I'm a superhero, you know, I mean, my kids loved it, and my wife thought it was cool too. Man, it makes me feel like I'm not wasting my time. You know, I feel like it's worth the, I don't know, it's worth all the long nights and time that I don't really get to spend with them that I could be, but it makes me feel like they look up to it, and it was all worth it. It was worth all the hard work and headache. So I drew the car. It had pie crust on the back, and it had those lace wheels on the front. Now remember, I drew the car way before I owned it, and I didn't really have a concept of how much this car weighs, you know, how wide it was, all these things. So I drew it with wheels I had in the shop, which I do a lot of times. I'll look at the parts I've got, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to spend money on wheels because I've got lace wheels over there. So I drew it with the lace wheels. Once the body got down on the chassis and put weight on the front wheels, I realized that it was not my Volkswagen. It weighed a lot more than my Volkswagen. A 6-fender has got fiberglass nose, doors, trunk lid, like fiberglass everything. Steel roof and quarters, that's it. Well, the Nash is an all-steel car with glass. So when I set the body down and like all the weight on the front, even without the engine in, it was evident that the lace wheels weren't going to work. So American Rebel Manufacturing set a new Starburst spindle mounts that are real spindle mounts, but they still have the option to put brakes on later if whoever buys it would want front brakes on it. It has a place for them that's machined for them. So I went with those, and they're rated for a lot more weight, and I can actually put a tire on it that isn't a bicycle tire. You know, it looks like a regular tire. And I thought that really less of a headache. The one thing I always worried about racing my Bug was when I turn off at the end of this track, are these wheels going to fold over on themselves? And with the Nash, that's the last thing I want someone that buys it to worry about. You know, I don't want to worry about it, let alone someone else. So the Starburst on the front worked perfect. Now for the back, I had those big M&H's on it to test fit everything. And I knew those tires were big, but once I actually mounted them to the wheels, put tubes in them, aired them up, they were about an inch bigger than I was planning on. So to keep from having to raise the body up and get this weird wheel gap on the back, I decided to go with my original drawing and put pie crust on the back of it, which of course is not going to work as well as a modern drag slick does, but for a nostalgic race car, a pie crust, it's my look that I like. I love a pie crust, and every time I don't use them, I regret not using them. The tires I ended up putting on the Nash were off of my Bug, and they're Towel City Slicks is what they are. They're a 30-inch tall tire on a 16-inch rim. And, well, if you steal from the Bug, what's going to go on the Bug? So I've raced the Bug with pie crust on it for 2 years now, and it's dialed in really well to where I'm ready to see what it'll do on a Hoosier Slick. So I put Hoosier Slicks on the Bug to rob the tires from it to put on the Nash. And a lot of the stuff that I do is robbing Peter to pay Paul. It was cheaper to buy Hoosiers for the back of my Bug than it was to buy a new set of cheater slicks for the Nash. So that's the reason I did that the way I did. So anyone that knows me knows that I own the upholstery shop. You know, I do all the interiors and nostalgic cars. So in this one, really figuring out what's right in a yellow and white car. I don't do matching color interiors. I don't like yellow interior in yellow cars. I don't do that. So I started looking at what would a Nash Metropolitan have in it. Well, the Nash Metropolitan had a small houndstooth in it from the factory. So I just kind of played off that a little bit. I tried to keep it simple, so of course I don't take a lot of time to do it, but at the same time, I still wanted it to be evident that effort was put into it. I didn't just wrap it in black and call it done. I put effort into putting the houndstooth and getting a migraine sewing through that stuff. Once it was all said and done, anyone that knows a Nash Metropolitan can look at that interior and know what I was going for. Anyone that knows the car and they may even be pissed off that I cut that little car up. But I think they would appreciate the fact that I cared enough about the car to put houndstooth back in it. I didn't make the parachute for it. You know, it's a pre-bought parachute. They have to be SFI and all that. But what I did was I made the bag that it goes in. I don't even know if that's like NHRA legal if it gets faster. I don't think you'd actually be able to use it, but I wanted the look. I loved the size that I made it. I put my cat logo on it too, as well as a seat, but that's my nod to Tony Nancy. He was a loner, you know, he built his race cars, he upholstered them, he did all this stuff, and in a weird way, I mean, that's who I want to be, you know, so I kind of just bled into his logo with mine. I mean, it's not a copy by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a rendition. I'm kind of known as being the cat guy, so I had my buddy Sailor Nick do that logo for me. It makes sense for what I want to do. I put it on all my nostalgic racing stuff. So, now the car's done. Interior's done. Paint's done. Car runs. Moves under its own power. I always like getting them shot for the magazine if they're going to before I race it, just in case something bad happens. So when I met you, we did the shoot for my truck, the pearl necklace, and the seam ripper, the dragster. And we did it right here on the gravel road. And then with the bug, we did it for the second issue of Speed and Culture. We've always just done it here. It's kind of our thing. You know, it feels good. It feels natural to do them. They're built and born in Deputy. They need showed to the world in Deputy too. Yeah, I mean, you look at like any of these guys that showed these cars in California, that's cool, but I'm not from California. You know, I'm from the middle of nowhere, Deputy, Indiana, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud that with very little resources, we can bring cars that the world sees. We do that from right here, and I don't know, it feels good. It feels good to know that we do that. The day we were shooting for the magazine, Walter showed up to help us with the photography for the shoot too. And with having him there, it made me really think about us showing up to that compound to get that car that day and how far it really had came. And then when you sat back, it felt like a lifetime just because of the coronavirus and everything shut down, but in all honesty, it got done really fast still. Be able to sit there and look at that car after doing the truck and dragster was the first thing I ever had that made it into print, and it was with you, Trent. And then to go from the Bug, which is my favorite car, it in print, and now the Nash, which when I first started, I didn't even plan for it to go to print or anything. I just thought I would record it a little bit and just to have it, even if it was for my own home videos. But to look at that car at the level it ended up at, and I don't know, it's really the day that all the pride sunk in to where I did it. I crossed the finish line. I know I hadn't raced it yet, but even if it never ran, I was really happy. I was happy that I seen it through, I finished it, and that it was getting shot for a magazine. And I did my 50-yard stand back there too, and went and stood in the field at Grandma's house, and I watched you up on the roof, you know, filming it, and I watched Walter holding the lights, and it means more to me than you guys know it does. It really does. I appreciate everything you guys do. I really do.
What do you think, Walter?
I love this car.
I know that we don't have an endless budget.
No.
You know, we're not rolling the dough. You gotta trade things, or people come out of the woodwork that give us things, or
it's a lot of work that you don't see.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even past the sweating and blood, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, as they say.
Yeah.
It's being able to upholster a seat for someone that has a hood I need. You know, learn a skill. You should really learn any kind of skill, to where even if that skill doesn't get you what you need, you know, at least it'll give you something to offer somebody that can do it. And when I started thinking like that, when it wasn't so much like, I need to do all this by myself. No, I don't. What I need to do is I need to help enough people that are willing to help me too. In doing that, on photography day, when you're sitting there getting a shot for Speed and Culture, I sat back and look at it, and I see Ryan Pope giving me the fenders. I see Mike and Adam Lowhorn putting that engine together for nothing. I see Ryan Walker building my rear end and driving up here every Sunday to help me bend tubes for the chassis. I see Walter there every single week helping me do anything without a question. And I see you on that roof taking the pictures and coming over with the potential of crashing your car in the middle of winter. I'm not just proud of that car, I'm proud of Dave North lettering the thing. I'm proud of Jeremy Lawfer cutting panels. I'm proud of every single person that I talked into being a part of it with me. And this is something that I stated as almost a joke at first. Nostalgic Racing is full of good people. You know, without good people, a trip to the racetrack would be nothing more than a wasted weekend and gas money. That's it. I've surrounded myself around people that give a shit as much as I do. Even if they don't have a car there, they're so excited to see it moving because they are a part of it. It would not be what it is now if it wasn't for a laundry list of people. All of them enjoy it just as much as I do, and that makes me want to do another one. It makes me want to build another car and do countless ones with everybody as long as I can, you know. And I hope that we do a million more together. But on this particular one, a lot of it seemed like it was done by me, myself, just because everything happened in my upholstery shop. But so many people had to help to make it happen. I know that everyone that I say is a big part of it. Every one of them always say, I barely did anything. And it's a lot of it, even guys that came over to look at the car and just give feedback on it, or a post on Instagram, private messages, all this stuff. There was a lot of times that in every project that you look at and you're like, man, I should just stop working on this one and do a different one, or should I even put this much money into this one, or anything. And when you get good people around you that really help with it, they see the process and they help you along the process. And even something as small as rooting somebody along, man, is it's good for everyone in the end.
And then top it off a little cherry for my personal vision. It's like I proposed to Kayla that day. And the same day.
Proposed to my sister.
Photo shoot day, proposal day. Just knocked it all out.
Yeah, let's get it all done. Well, that's the only way I was ever going to remember when we shot the car.
Yeah, I gotta make this day important. Let's propose today. Yeah. I just got a haircut.
I would have never remembered.
Yeah, this is knocking out that day. But no,
it was mainly about the haircut, though.
Yeah, I just get it knocked out of the way.
Got a haircut.
But that's the great thing too. You know, there's one thing that I remember when we got done before we shot the grill. I think it was like the last shot that particular day. I kept filming. I felt something, and I'm thankful I did, because you talked about how, man, I really wish Papaw was here.
Yeah.
It's gonna sound crazy, but, well, I mean, probably not. I really wish Papaw was here to see this one. You know, both of them. Like, I built that one in his garage after he died, and then this one I built at my house. But really, these are the first things I've ever done that he wasn't alive for or involved in. He kind of was my coach, always coached me through, and yeah, I know. It's cool, man, just to think that we go from him teaching me how to read a ruler in this garage right here to building stuff that people are willing to come and film. It's just, I don't know, makes me want to cry, man. It really does.
And talk about that, knowing that you get to shoot another finished car next to his shop, and do you feel like does your drive come from him too? Like,
well, kind of a backstory to Papaw is
I'm telling you is
the man was a genius. You know,
the more resistance you put into hydraulics, the more powerful they get.
I was never real good in school, and it's not that I didn't have the head for it. I just didn't give a shit. You know, I didn't want to go to school. I was a troublemaker when I was a kid. I like getting in a lot of fights and stuff. And God, I can't believe I'm crying this hard.
You had a good grandpa.
I did. I had a good grandpa. And shit, guys, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I can hear him right now calling me a pussy too. Papaw taught me how to weld, how to grind, how to drill, everything. He was a machinist by trade, but more than anything, if you need something built, he could build it. He was a phenomenal fabricator, and he didn't have the most patience of any man I'd ever met. You know, I really learned a lot while holding a flashlight. And if I didn't hold the flashlight right, he would teach me how to do that too. Oh shit.
And now, you know, you brought really wish
so
that.
Sorry, Trent.
No, this is real. Like I said, don't be
yeah,
ashamed.
my bad, dude.
Oh no, this is. I don't want to say this is great. Like I was trying to make you cry, but in a sense that I know that's why it's so great about almost like the magazine. We got to put the comic, you know, with him in it, because I like things to have feeling. I want things to be sentimental because we have more passion. Because it's easier for me to take time and film something that someone cares about. Every chapter of this build is beautiful people to have a great time, and it's all good vibes. And again, to capture that moment of you saying that you wish Papa was here, I think we all understand that feeling.
He wasn't a car guy at all. You know, I mean, I didn't get that from him. But anything that he started, he finished, you know, and I think that's why I really wish he could see what I got going on now, because I've knocked out a lot of stuff and I didn't slack on any of my quality or nothing. And even my upholstery shop, sorry dude, even my upholstery shop wouldn't have happened without him. You know, he pushed me to do all that too. To quit the 9-to-5 and make my own money. He crippled himself in a factory and he didn't want the same for me. And I mean, it was a noble profession. He kept a lot of vehicles on the road, you know, working in a diesel company, but he wanted everything in the world for me. And I just really wish he could I just really wish that he could have been here to see this recording, you know, like not just the effort I put into it, but the effort all my buddies put into it too, because I was really proud that my grandpa got to meet all my friends. And he always said, you know, for somebody as young as you are, you've got the best friends. And he was right, I do. So it's race day. We get there a day early because I want to make some shakedown runs on Friday, so we're fully prepared for Saturday's race. And we get there just in time for the rain, so weekend starting off great. And the next day we get up, go back over there, and it's my sister and Trent came along, and I had both of my kids and my wife there with me. And Ryan Walker was there racing too with us. We kind of have like a little race team. I drive the car for the first time over 3 miles an hour, and it's got a wheel wobble so bad that I can't drive it. I mean, it won't even drive, let alone race it. You know, it's impossible. So I go to the end of the track. I was going to do a launch, and I knew on the way to the end of the track, there's no way it's going to drive. So I was not only sick because I wasn't going to be able to race the car, I was sick that we weren't going to have action shots for the magazine. I was sick that I had Walter and his wife on their way. I had my buddy Joe coming down from around Chicago to see it. I had you guys all the way over there. I just felt like I was letting everybody down, you know, and I really felt like I shit the bed. I did. Then Ryan, thank God for Ryan, man. He grabbed the measuring tape and measured the front, and I had it towed out like a lot, like 2 inches, something you could visibly see. I don't know how it happened, but between some time of adjusting the front end, I had taken that tire, and I don't remember doing this, but sometime I had taken it off to paint it, and I had taken the tie rods out. When I put them back in, I didn't put them back where they were. I just screwed them back in and didn't go back and check it, which is a very important lesson that I needed to remind myself, is to always take a day to go through all the nuts and bolts, check everything. So once we got that aligned, I went to the top of the track, held it on the trans brake and let loose of it. You and Ryan was there, and Ryan told me to stop it and stab it again, you know, just see how it felt again. And when I stabbed it that time, I felt the switch. We had a race car that day. So, the nitro turned to butterflies again. Just so happens. I don't know what it is about pulling into the staging lanes that just cramps your stomach. I mean, it's, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever get used to it, even not in a new car. In a car I'm used to, I get the same feeling. So, we get to the staging lanes, and I almost forgot how little my car was. Any car that makes a Henry J look big is a little car. And I got up there and I started looking around, and I felt like my car was half the size of everybody's, which is kind of cartoon funny, you know. You stare at a car so long.
When you look small compared to a Henry J, I just knew, like, oh my gosh, when this thing pulls up, people are gonna go crazy on the lanes.
Yeah, and it did too. Like, me and Walter got there and we were talking, and there's one point where he opens the doors and says, "Hey, are you doing good?" And we just had to stop and look at how many people were looking at the car. You know, the little car gets attention. You know, it's not one you see everywhere. It was pretty cool, but the feeling, man, until you get behind the wheel, and I mean, trust me, my cars are not like some of these guys. They strap to rocket ships, but this car, I thought it was going to do probably an 850. If I'm being honest, I thought it's going to do an 850. My goal at the end of it, I'd like to get it dialed in. This is an 1/8 mile. I'd like to get it dialed in to where it'd run about an 8, is what I thought. And Walter is trying to keep me calm.
I'm with him through staging lanes and through, you know, try to keep him calm. When you're a driver, you get very nervous. Because I've been down that road. I've been a driver. It's different. Try to keep him calm, try to keep him focused.
And then by the time I got to 1 or 2 cars away, when I'm about to get in the burnout box, you're on your own. You're locked in, your helmet's on, you're strapped in. You're going to do this thing. You're going to do it. And it's kind of like the feeling you get before you get in a fight. You know? Multiple ones. So I get to the burnout box, and I do just a little easy burnout, and in my head I'm telling myself, just let it off the trans brake and then just drive it, just to make sure it goes, and then just drive it down the track. And there's something about staging that car and seeing the top bulb come on and that bottom that makes you forget all about that shit. And I just hold the button wide open and I let her loose to see what it'd do, and it surprised me.
Felt great. Yeah, felt really good. Did it lift the wheels? I don't know.
See. How'd it feel inside?
Good. They ran the same time my bug does. First time out. I thought I was gonna do like an 850, realistically.
I kept telling you it's gonna be as good.
I mean, it's a 12-second car. In a quarter mile, that's a 12-second car.
And that's your first pass. Just wait till everything gets tightened up more.
Oh, really? Once we get the front end where it needs to be.
Everything will come into it.
Oh, I'm happy.
Surprised me. It took off, and I felt immediately that it had more power out of the hole than my bug does. I felt it immediately. And it even like took off a little rocky. Like I had a little bump to it. It was trying to raise the front end up a little bit, so I got a tad bit of wheel wobble when the weight went down on it. But as I went down the track, all that went away, and I just let it eat. And I let off a little before the end of the track and still ran a 757. So I'm a half second faster than I ever thought it would do. So not only am I terrible at adjusting the toe end on cars, I'm also terrible at doing the math on how fast they're going to go.
Watching them burn out, so it performed great. The launch, it did the launch like it should. It did pull front wheels a little bit more than I thought it would on bypass, but it did, and they were still turning. You know. I didn't like the wobble, but there again, we know what the problem is, know how to fix it. And I can't wait till the next race day. I'm excited.
What's actually going through my head is, like, I know that you are standing there thinking, oh man, that went faster than he thought. But in my head, what's going on is, that probably felt faster than it really was. Because in my head, I was thinking, that felt like a 750. You know, it felt like my bug, when my bug's on a pass, it runs a 750. So I'm thinking, man, that felt like a pass in my bug. And then I started thinking, well, it's a new car, you're not used to it. You probably just went and did a 12-second pass like a dipshit, you know? So don't get out here and expect that it went fast. Then when I got to the ticket shack and she handed it to me, that's when I realized, I was like, oh man, this sucker's a race car. We've got us a race car now. And I think that's the first thing I said when I seen everybody was, we've got a race car now, boys.
Pass and everybody at the pit. What do you remember from that day?
The excitement, how everybody was excited because the car performed like it should have. And of course, when he handed me a time slip and I saw the time, I was very excited because I knew it was as fast as Bud. Of course, me and him teased each other all through this build because I kept saying it's going to be faster. And he kept, no, it won't, no, it won't. So to me, that was an accomplishment because I felt like I saw what I needed to see.
I get back from that first pass, pull into my spot. My heart's beating out of my chest. You know, I can't even, that's undescribable to somebody that's never done it. Then everyone comes, you know, all your friends come, congratulating and everything, but the person I want to see's face more than anybody is Ryan's, if I'm completely honest. Ryan is the crew chief. So if something's bad, Ryan is going to tell me whether, you know, you want to hear it or not, that Ryan's job is to tell you. And he's awesome about that too. Another great thing is get done and then he asks, well, what do you want to do? But when Ryan tells me that it looked pretty good, you know, he said that it shook a little bit when the front end came down, but all in all, it made a great pass, better than either one of me or Ryan were expecting. I didn't think it was going to do that. And he asked, and this is the question Ryan always asks, what's next? You know, what do we want to do? What's the goal here? And I told him we shattered the goal. You know, everything's done. Now all I got to focus on is making it do a clean pass. That's it. And Ryan is cool enough to say, okay, man, awesome, thumbs up. Let's just keep it safe. Instead of, I've seen some guys get pushed to the limit. You know, let's push it. Let's see if we can do this or this. And Ryan doesn't do that. Ryan lets me do what I want to do. It felt really good to know that he felt safe about it. I felt safe about it. Everyone was excited, so it was obviously entertaining. And my son and my daughter, well, my daughter more than my son, my little girl was so excited. Talked about it all week, you know, of the banana is what she calls it. The banana is an actual race car. It's not just a toy car, it's a race car. And pretty much finishing up the documentation of this segment of Paper to Pavement, I really got a chance to think about it on the ride home with it. You know, my rear view, the car's on the trailer, my family's in the car with me, and I can actually breathe. You know, I feel like I was holding my breath for 2 months, you know, trying to just worry about everything that hadn't happened yet. And to know that I really did take a drawing just on a little piece of paper and make it into a real machine that is on pavement really makes sense why it went from paper to pavement.